Every now and then in politics, a person says something or writes something that is so illuminating, so illustrative of prevailing thought that it is really worthwhile to analyze and dissect it, even though the person themselves lacks importance or note. Such was the case, for instance, when former free speech defender Sam Harris articulated the core defining, motivating worldview of American liberals, Democrats, and their allies in corporate media, and did so perfectly. Namely, that Donald Trump is such a singular evil, and that defeating him in the 2020 election was such a paramount, overarching imperative that literally anything and everything done to advance that singular goal, lying, cheating, censoring, authoritarianism, suppressing relevant reporting, was not only justifiable, but morally necessary. And that's why that video with Sam Harris went so viral. Not because there's anything particularly relevant about Sam Harris, but because what he said was such a pure distillation of establishment thinking that it shined a uniquely bright light on the rotted mindset that has governed the hegemonic left liberal sectors of our politics and media for the last 6 years.
Now, that doesn't answer the people who say it's still completely unfair to not have looked at the laptop in a timely way and to have shut down the New York Post's Twitter account. Like that's just a conspiracy. That's a left-wing conspiracy to deny the presidency to Donald Trump. Absolutely, it was. Absolutely, right. But I think it was warranted, right. And again, it's a coin toss as to whether or not
Sam, I'm sorry.
that particular piece.
Now, every time Sam Harris says something that deliberately is provocative and people then get provoked, he then goes and whines and claims it was taken out of context. So feel free, very free, to go watch the full context because it makes it even worse. I just assumed you've all seen it and so showed you a part of it. And it amazes me every time I see it. Not that someone would think that way. It's incredibly obvious for years that such unscrupulous, limitlessly dishonest corruption is exactly how they thought. What's amazing is that someone was willing to admit it in public that that's how they think. But credit to Sam Harris, I suppose, for his candor in admitting all of that. That's exactly how I feel about a new hit piece that was just published yesterday by MSNBC, written by former Vox writer and current NBC columnist Jishan Alim. The article claims, and I'm not kidding, not even exaggerating, that along with former Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard and the independent journalist Matt Taibbi, I'm leading a sinister and insidious plot to channel innocent leftists into the menacing arms of the authoritarian far right. There you see the title of this marvel of investigative journalism that uncovered this conspiracy, quote, how the populist left has become vulnerable to the populist right. So we're not just clandestinely converting leftists into fascists, but we're predators exploiting this vulnerable group, this defenseless, marginalized group against our dark arts of manipulation, mendacity, and mind control. And there you see the picture, let's put that back up on the screen, of the three ringleaders, me, Tulsi Gabbard, and Matt Taibbi, and you see us there all in this grainy black and white imagery chosen by MSNBC editors in total good faith. Not to subliminally make us look like fugitive Nazis in a most wanted photo as authorities search in vain for us throughout South America, but just because it's very difficult, of course, to find color photos of the three of us. That's why they used this grainy black and white imagery. Now, there on the left, you see me with my mouth open, presumably spouting my melodic, hypnotic tunes that lead the vulnerable leftists down a long, twisted path where they arrive at meetings where they're taught how to hate black people and Jews and LGBTs. And then next to me, you see Tulsi Gabbard there, her hair deceptively flowing in the spirit of aloha, while actually containing barely visible Nazi iconography, detectable only through the well-trained eyes of a grizzled giant of investigative journalism like Vox and MSNBC's Alim. And then on the right, exactly where he is and belongs, on the far right, is Matthew Taibbi, looking there like what he is, the love child of Bond villain Ernst Stravo Blofeld, there you see him, and Third Reich propagandist Joseph Goebbels. Now let's put that screen picture back on there. There you see in the lower left-hand corner, there appears for some kind of reason disembodied arms banging desperately on a door, presumably representing the vulnerable, well-intentioned leftists we lured into a locked room in the middle of a rainforest for their Nazi indoctrination training, only for them to realize what was happening to them far too late to escape, yet still begging with futility for their freedom. And then in that upper hand right-hand corner appear Roman columns, I guess, because I have no idea why has Roman architecture now become a symbol of fascist power and liberal corporate media giants. And then along the bottom, you can see there what appear to be a series of colors, perhaps evocative of the colors of the rainbow flag, perhaps because we're planning the construction of concentration camps for LGBTs, or because there's a corporate requirement at MSNBC that every article must now contain some artwork in the family of the LGBT flag in order to be inclusive. I'm not really sure why that's there either. But then under this incredibly objective and neutral montage is the caption, quote, "Former stars of the far left have become aligned with the populist right in surprising ways in recent years." Anyway, that's quite a lot of innuendo and subtle smearing before we even get to the article itself. But let's proceed there. Obviously not because former Vox writer and current MSNBC columnist Zishan Alim has any particular relevance. You could randomly pluck literally anyone on Twitter with a resistance hashtag, a Ukrainian flag, or a Lincoln Project coffee mug in their bio to have them write his articles, and literally nobody would notice. But it's worth looking at because that article, like Sam Harris's mega viral video, really is a masterclass in demonstrating the stunted, very obsolete, and simple-minded prism through which these media simpletons see the world, as well as the way they have completely inverted what liberty and authoritarianism means, what right and left meant, and what the core and defining values of journalism once were. So let's dig into the first passage. Quote, "Since the mid-2010s, the rise of the populist left and the populist right has shaken up the American political spectrum. Both movements have maneuvered to pressure and persuade the political establishment to adopt their objectives, which is kind of what politics is about. But in recent years, something unusual has been happening. We're seeing the formation of a pipeline that circumvents the center altogether, and directly connects left-wing to right-wing populism." Oh no, we can't circumvent the center, by which he means the Washington establishment, the only entity Americans hate more than the corporate media of which he's a part. But that thinking illustrates one of the reasons there is such a gigantic breach between employees of New York City and DC-based media giants on the one hand, and the citizenry they pretend to represent on the other. These kinds of journalists are capable of seeing the world only through this flat, linear framework. Over here is the far left, then comes the left, then establishment Democrats, then establishment Republicans, then conservatives, then the dreaded far right or alt-right. And they see this as like a board game with very rigid rules. One can only move one square at a time. So if you're on the mainstream left, it's fine to move a bit toward establishment liberalism since that's the next square over. But you can't jump all the way over to the far right. The rules don't allow that. And besides, how does that make any ideological sense? But only insular DC media and political mavens see the world this way. Consider this fact that political journalists are completely incapable of understanding, let alone explaining, even though doing so is their nominal job. According to the University of Virginia Center for Politics, 9.2 million Americans, at least, over 9 million people, voted for Barack Obama in 2012, then voted for Donald Trump in 2016. That was a major reason Trump won in 2016. He attracted large numbers of voters who had not voted Republican in many years, but did so in that election. Now, people like Zihan Alim have absolutely no capacity to understand how this could happen, other than by dismissing such people as stupid, incoherent, and confused, just poorly educated about politics, failing to read enough Vox and listen enough to Rachel Maddow babble about the dangers of the Kremlin, and therefore being confused. And trust me, that's how they think of such people. To them, this is bizarre. Or to use his words when describing our conspiracy, quote, "a pipeline that circumvents the center altogether and directly connects left-wing to right-wing populism." This makes no sense to them. Last month, Aleem's former Vox colleague, Matthew Iglesias, was spending his time online, like so many of these established media figures, expressing similar confusion about my ideology and the ideology of millions of people like me by insisting there's something abnormal about seeming to have one foot in the populist right and one foot in the populist left, but never wanting anything to do with what Aleem calls the center, and Iglesias venerates as, quote, the normal moderate. Responding to someone explaining to him that... Thanks for watching this clip from System Update. Catch our full shows for free, live weekdays at 7 p.m. Eastern on Rumble, and join our locals community at greenwald.locals.com for all of my written journalism, exclusive after-show Q&As, and more.